hours of rock talk on the dial. I'm your host, Ferris Kennedy, and in the booth with me, a man who is no stranger and good friends with Norman Lear.
Wow, Norman Lear. Yo, 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 all in the family, Dr. Ian Clarke.
And moving on up to the east side.
I know, he's totally shameless.
Dr. Ian Clarke is with me, ladies and gentlemen.
It's wonderful to be here with my buddy, and again, looking over the Pacific Ocean. Where are we? Oh, I'm not sure.
Iqaluit.
Oh, yeah. Wah, wah, wah.
What do we got on the burner there, big guy?
Well, listen, I want to talk about something that, oh, heck, I'm going to say it. We're tackling the subject today that's strange, and that is Canadian rock and roll. And it's strange for me because when I think of rock and roll, it doesn't necessarily have borders. But I'm pushing on. I'm brave. Stay with me. So I'm going to begin what I think is the beginning. And I think the beginning of Canadian rock and roll is really romping. Ronnie Hawkins, and yes, I know he's from Arkansas. Ronnie had a hit in 59 with Mary Lou, and he also had a hit with Chuck Berry's 40 Days, same year, and with the Hawks in 1963 with Bo Diddley's Who Do You Love? And yes, I know that the band that was backing him became the band later on with Leo Van Helm and Robbie Robertson. I get that.
No one knows the other ones.
Well, I'll mention actually there's one more that became kind of famous. I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know it, but this hit home again. What else about going back then? There was a group called the Asteroids in 58. They had probably the first rock and roll record in Atlantic Canada. I think it was called Shush Blast Off or something. Montreal had the Beaumarks. They recorded the first internationally successful Canadian rock and roll hit called Clap Your Hands in 1960. And Bobby Curtola, you might have heard of Bobby Curtola. He had a hit around the same time with Hand in Hand. And he also had a hit with Fortune Teller. Bobby Curtola was great. He had some great hits. The Poppers, who recorded a song called Magic People, I think. So that's a kind of a Spinal Tapian title. They were the first Canadian rock band with a U.S. recording contract. And the Ugly Ducklings, who had a hit with a song called Nothing. It's actually kind of punky when you hear it, and they opened for the Rolling Stones at Maple Leaf Gardens in 1966. Okay, so now we're in gear at 67, and you have bands like Luke and the Apostles, the band Mandela, with Dominic Triano, who later joined the Guess Who, Robbie Lane and the Disciples, Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers, they had a band member called, named rather, Tommy Chong. Might ring a bell.
From Cheech and Chong.
And Cheech and Chong. You had influential groups like Kensington Market. I do remember them, kind of jazzy. And Lighthouse. What a great band that was. Great music. And in the States, you had Canadians in popular bands like the Lovin' Spoonful and Mamas and Papas. Neil Young was around, of course, from around 63 to 66 in Canada. Played with the Squires and the Minor Birds. And a guy named Galt McDermott. Boy, that's a great name. He wrote the music for the rock musical Hair. Talk about a feather in your cap. And there was a band, I think it was called Sparrow or the Sparrows. They changed their name to Steppenwolf. And they were down in Yorkville. That's where John Kay started. And Blood, Sweat, and Tears, of course, with David Clayton Thomas, kind of jazz fusion. So we're into the 60s. From 69 to about 72, you had Canada's most successful band. Guess Who?
Guess Who?
That's it, man.
But with Cummings and Bachman, not who these other guys are.
Yeah, it's true. In 1970, they had American Woman, and they took off like a meteor. Later, of course, Randy Bachman went on to form Bachman Turner Overdrive, and yes, as you know, they had some hits. I mentioned the band Lighthouse. Around the same time, five-man electrical band. They're known as the Staccatos. They changed their name to sound hipper and had a big song with Signs. So I mentioned Ronnie Hawkins' backing band became the band. He had another backing band, Crowbar, who had a big hit with Oh What a Feeling. Great song. So I've laid the foundation for the 60s, 70s, and 80s rock that my buddy here is going to discuss artists later on and over the years. What I'm going to do now, ladies and germs, is go down kind of a slippery slope, and one that I've mentioned before, and I'm trying to put it all together for you right now, and that is funding for the arts in Canada. No, don't turn that dial. I'm going to try to make this interesting because it's important if we're going to understand Canadian rock. It's a subject that divides artists. Some artists believe government funding has no role in the arts, that handouts corrupt art. The other side says, no, without funding, Canadian arts would disintegrate. Our neighbor to the south is just too powerful, and we wouldn't stand a chance of survival. I'm not going to wade into those murky waters, but what we can do is take a look at the Canadian government's role in regulating music, because it's an offshoot of the funding system. According to the CRTC, the Canadian Radio, Television, Telecommunications Commission, there's something called the MAPL system, MAPL. Get it? Maple? Canadian? M stands for music, A is for artist, P stands for performance, and L stands for lyrics. And that's what the government looks at when determining if a song, artist, musical, whatever, is indeed Canadian. They are extensive guidelines. With the CRTC's intervention, the Broadcasting Act, which was adopted in 1968, really kicked in 72. So post-72 is when this stuff really began infiltrating. As of 2022, in commercial radio, English language and French language stations must ensure that at least 10% of all special interest musical broadcast is devoted to Canadian selections. They're also expected to ensure that at least 25% of all concert music and 20% of all jazz and blues is devoted to Canadian selections. As well, commercial radio stations have to ensure that special interest music selections, including Canadian content, are scheduled in a reasonable manner throughout the day. You can't put them on at 3 a.m., which is what stations used to do. You got to play them at a time when more than, cab drivers will hear it. Like many things the government does, the intent is good, but is it practical? For an example, we can take a look at the Canadian rocker Bryan Adams. That's Bryan. It doesn't matter whether you're a fan of Brian or not. What happened between him and the CRTC highlights some of the weaknesses of the government funding for music. This is a quote from Mr. Adams, quote, "The Canadian government should take a step out of the music business entirely." This is actually from 1993. He was about to embark on a tour for the album Waking Up the Neighbors. Now, the album had been recorded in Britain and co-written by a non-Canadian, and that meant it didn't have enough Canadian content to satisfy the Canadian radio CRTC. I'll short form it. This is Adams again, quote, "I think it's a disgrace and it's a shame that we have to deal with the stupidity all the time. You'll never hear Elton John being declared un-British." Nice. So at a press conference, a reporter asked him, "How do you feel, Brian, when you learned your music was un-Canadian and your new album was not to be considered Canadian content?" He replied, quote, "I didn't think much of it. I never thought much about CanCon anyway. I always thought that it did nothing but breed mediocrity." I was pretty sorry to hear about it, to be honest. In the early days, it wasn't until my records were big in America that I started to get serious airplay in Canada. Sorry to say that, but it's true. Something to think about there. So what do we make of the Canadian CRTC rulings in music? Well, if you like funding, you can't have one without the other. The government has every right to add restrictions if they give you money, if you accept the money. As an analogy, if you own a farm and you build a private road, you can go up and down that road as fast as you want and as drunk as you want. But when you go on a public road, you don't own it. So you have to abide by rules and regulations. It makes sense. But in the case of the CRTC, even if you don't accept money, say as a private broadcaster, you are still ruled by CRTC regulations. That can be a problem. Burton Cummings famously said that all the Guess Who hits, the big hits, were made without government funding. Okay, without CRTC regulations. No one had to play them on the radio. And then he said, quote, "That's all I have to say about that." So, I kind of know where Burton's coming from. So how does Canada compare with other countries? Well, according to the 2005 Canadian Council for the Arts report, per capita, the leader in funding in the arts is Finland, Next is Germany, then France, Sweden, Netherlands, and then Canada, followed by the UK, Australia, and Ireland, and the US. It's no coincidence, rather, that the list is topped by northern countries with left-styled governments. So if you're a Canadian musician who needs funding, you're in the right country. So let's look at the 3 leading pros and cons of government funding for the arts. 3 pros. Government spending on arts programs and organizations generates economic activity. Number 2, arts programs are part of the vibrant civil society and therefore an important part of any democracy. And 3, involvement in the arts can be a positive influence on vulnerable people in society. All right. 3 leading cons of government funding for the arts. 1, government funding discourages charitable donations to arts programs. Actually, that's quite important. Next, government funding of arts programs will inevitably lead to increased government influence and control over art. Definitely food for thought. And 3, there's little evidence that government funding for arts programs is helpful in qualitatively or quantitatively expanding the arts. Keep that in mind. How do I feel about it? Well, I've been around the arts long enough to know nothing is free in this world. You have to pay, sometimes in the most imperceptible but long-lasting ways. And with that ominous conclusion, I announce that this is Dr. Ian Clarke, and you have been listening to what we talk about when we talk about Canadian rock. So my buddy here, Mr. Kennedy, is going to fill us in on artists and hits that I just skipped over in Canadian rock.
So when it comes to our country here, that apparently I was blasphemized on certain listener emails.
I'll say.
Jeez. Wow.
Pick your game up there.
That's wow. Jeez. Yes. So obviously we are not like our friends down south, but in the 60s, we had the likes of Neil Young.
We did.
The Band.
We did.
The Guess Who.
Great band.
Steppenwolf.
Amazing band.
The Stampeders.
I saw them twice. They were a great live band, too.
Joni Mitchell.
Well, I mean, go back to one of our shows. She's a goddess.
Lighthouse.
Strong band, great musicians.
5-man electrical band.
Sign, that's it.
Buffalo Springfield.
A very influential band, yeah.
Gordon Lightfoot.
Well, God bless him.
Mm-hmm. So those are guys that
I know.
They started it, and again, there was no funding back then.
No, there's absolutely no funding in the 60s for these guys that I know of. No, there was no, and importantly, the radio stations did not have to play them.
They believe that if you're good, we'll put you on the radio.
You wrote American Woman, great song, you're on.
That's it. The 70s, a little bit different kind of feel. You got Rush, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Street Heart, Trooper, April Wine, Triumph. This one's going to take you back. Saga.
Oh, wow. Saw them live, yeah.
And Chilliwack. It's a little weak.
I'm going to say, buddy, you just compared them to what you read out of the 60s.
But this is my point.
Yeah. Good point.
Is my point.
Good point.
And not running over Rush or BTO, because I think Rush kind of started in the late 60s, but they kind of...
Yeah, they're 70s band.
Yeah, they got their streamline in the 70s. Bachman Turner Drive, okay, that's just basically the Guess Who 2.0.
Yes, yeah, good, well put.
And Trooper, I don't know.
Oh, come on.
You know?
I mean, stop.
So, but now when we go to the 80s, they kind of redeem themselves a little bit. Tom Cochrane and Red Ryder. Kim Mitchell and Max Webster. Bryan Adams and the Dudes of Leisure. That's right, that's his band. It's called the Dudes of Leisure, if you guys didn't know that. See, Canadian content, you get it over here.
Unbelievable.
The Tragically Hip. Lee Aaron, when she started off with metal.
You like Lee Aaron. You mention her any chance you get.
Hey, she's just as hot as Susanna Hoffs. She still looks good.
I know.
God bless her. Sass Jordan.
That's true, isn't it? She's got a great voice.
Alana Miles.
Another great voice.
I had a crush on her when I was a kid.
Oh, really? Eh?
Oh, God. Yeah, I thought she was hot.
Sure.
She just had that look. And she had a great voice.
Black Velvet.
Yeah. Black Velvet. Helix. Blue Rodeo.
Yeah, I mean, what a touring band they are.
Loverboy. Honeymoon Suite. Now, it's starting to get weak now. Okay.
I'm going to say you're starting to thin. Now,
Pursuit of Happiness, your buddy Mo Berg.
Mo Berg, sure.
Big Sugar.
Yep.
And then we're going to end it off strong with 5440, because people forget about 5440.
They interesting music. I remember them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Every time I look at you, I go blind.
He goes blind, and I look at.
Now, when we hit to the 90s, I thought the 90s was pretty strong, and that's the era I grew up in.
Okay.
I got Sloan.
Yeah.
Nickelback made their appearance.
You love them.
I love Nickelback. Bare Naked Ladies with Steve Page.
Yeah.
No Page, no dice. It ain't happening. Okay.
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette, kind of grunge.
Kind of grungy, yeah.
Celine Dion converted from francophone to English, and
she made it.
Skyrocketed.
She skyrocketed. Sure did.
Avril Lavigne for alternative.
Yeah, Skater Boy.
Shania Twain for country.
She did it. It's a mystery to me, but she did it.
Well, courtesy of Mutt Lang was a good producer.
He sure was.
Big Wreck.
Yeah.
Moist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our Lady Peace.
Good band, eh? A solid band.
The Tea Party.
Another great band.
I Mother Earth.
Hey, you're just knocking them off.
Billy Talent.
Yeah.
Sum 41.
Sure.
Simple Plan.
Yep.
The Watchmen.
Yeah, so this is all 90s you're saying, eh?
Yeah. Junk House.
Yeah.
Econoline Crush.
Sure.
Finger 11.
Don't know them.
Trouble Charger.
Don't know them.
Matthew Good.
Yeah.
Crash Test Dummies.
Yeah, of course.
Brad Roberts.
Superman never made
any money. Yeah. Then you got the 2000s. And
by the way, that's strong. That
90s is strong.
That's strong.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
2000s, we got the Sheepdogs, Arcade Fire, Glorious Sons, The Trues, Headley, Wayward Saints.
This is very diverse. I mean, Arcade Fire beside the Trues. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Hey Rosetta.
Yeah, right.
90s, Great Big Sea came out. Forgot to mention them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They were there. And that's what I got. And today, you know, you want to... I'm going to mention this because it has to be mentioned. You got Justin Bieber, you got Shawn Mendes, and you got The Weeknd, and you also have Drake. Those are four guys right now that are just hitting it out of the park. They crossed over to the United States like as if it was like just showing the passport and off they went.
I know.
Their music just hit, and you can't knock them because Bieber actually plays the guitar. Shawn Mendes plays the guitar, the piano, writes his own music, his lyrics. Drake is okay, so he was on Degrassi, big deal. Everyone has to get a start somewhere. Who cares? Whether he didn't grow up on the streets. He had a kind of a little silver spoon in his mouth. He got, whatever. He came from a wealthy family, but whatever. He took that and made it to a positive, and now he's a goodwill ambassador for the NBA with the Raptors. And then The Weeknd, well, holy cow! Like out of nowhere, this guy came in and boom, just like knocked it out of the park.
I know. Yeah, you don't have to like them. They're obviously gifted guys.
And this is what's kind of putting Canada on the map lately because everyone else is kind of like, they checked out a little bit. Like Nickelback's still doing some stuff, but I think Sloan is kind of retired. Bare Naked Ladies, I'm telling you, ever since Steve Page left, they're not the same.
No.
So I don't know. Like Shania's still going. Avril's changed her style, her look.
She's kind of grown up. Yeah.
She's not a kid anymore. Simple Plan is actually retiring. This is their final tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're calling it a career. I'm still happy that the Sheepdogs and the Glorious Sons are around because I kind of like their music. Wayward Saints got some good stuff going. Like they've been pressing hard for a long time, and they're finally starting to come out. Like they're finally out.
Great musicians.
They are great musicians.
Check out our interview with them, boy.
Yes, check out our interview.
Go to our
Wayward
website.
Saints. We had Darren and Justin. from the band.
No.
And this is what I got, Ian. I'm like,
and it's really interesting. It almost seems to go. I know decades are decades, but it almost seems to go in decades. This is the way you listed them there. The '60s were so strong, and the '90s were strong too.
'80s were good.
They're
70s
good.
Were weak.
Yeah, '70s was.
And I think that's where maybe interference came in.
Maybe because they got sloppy and they force fed it. Maybe that was it. I never even thought about that point, but I do know that, as I said ominously, nothing in the world is free. It's a terrible thing. This is one of life's lessons. And you're going to have to pay for it somehow. And when people force songs on the radio that may not, or rather should not be there for various reasons, it just degrades stuff. It doesn't help the artists at all. Maybe they're not ready to be on a radio. I don't know. But just government intervention is tricky. The good theory, but take it easy.
You had said that Gordon Lightfoot had called the radio station to say to stop playing my stuff.
Yeah, he got this true story. Well, hopefully it's not apocryphal. I heard that Gordon Lightfoot called Chum or one of the Toronto radio stations, said, "Can you just back off playing so much of my music because it's hurting concert sales? Because people are getting overexposed in Gordon Lightfoot." And they weren't going to his Massey Hall gigs or whatever. So, but he was so safe, right? Canadian producers, Canadian, blah, 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 right down the line. Like, he was just the ultimate Canadian artist in the 70s, Gordon Lightfoot.
Well, he was more a 60s guy, but...
Yeah, but in the 70s, because of CRTC, he was the guy they nailed. Gordon Lightfoot was so Canadian, right? You could just smell the maple syrup.
Well, even Leonard Cohen, too, his stuff started, like his poetry and his writings, they wanted him to, he started singing it. Or, I guess, reciting it.
He started to do that for money. He said, poor Leonard realized he could never really make a living as a poet, even though he did get some government handouts, so he went into the music business. And I'm glad he did. But that's why he went in late. He was an old rocker. He was in his 30s for his first album, which is incredibly old and for pop music. But,
and this is the thing with Canadian music, especially on radio stations with the airplay. It's like that loop of like the same 18 bloody songs that they got. It's as if they cannot bring in the, side B.
I know, you're not going to find anything interesting, but that's just the way it goes. But I don't know. I mean, right now we can stream stuff, and so they've lost their monopoly. The poor CRTC is trying to shut down, or modify rather, streaming now and stuff. Really? Don't waste your time. Just let it be, as the Beatles said. Let it be. Because
you think they're going to finally disappear?
I don't know what the relevancy will be when I don't know how you battle streaming or Google or whatever. Why waste your time? People want to listen to what they want to listen to. You can't force feed them. The gig is up. Do something else useful. I don't know.
Like help promote the music across the
Maybe,
border.
You're right. I don't know. These are tax dollars. You can't force feed people anymore. It doesn't work that way. So anyway, that's our take on it, ladies and germs. Again, I hope it wasn't exhausting. If you're interested in Canadian rock and, there's so much great stuff out there every day. But how we got where we're at, that was like a 25-minute primer on it. So hope you enjoyed it. My name is Dr. Ian Clarke.
And I'm Ferris Kennedy, wishing you all a good day.
And a good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Bye.